Hello everybody. This video is going to be an indicator video for the wave degree timing. Basically a quick introduction showing how to utilize this tool and how to apply it in real time. So the primary function of the wave degree timing tool is two things. Number one, it's to help manage expectations with current price action, meaning real-time degree classification. And number two, awareness of major changes in the trend, which means price pivots. So we're going to take a look at the first one, and then we'll dive into the second one shortly afterwards. So managing expectations with current price action. What we do basically is we look at our primary count. We have a bias that's made from the narrative of price action, and with that bias we have a primary count, and most likely we always have an alternative count. But essentially we want to be looking at our primary count because that's our primary expectation. So let's go ahead and do that. As of right now, in real time, as of right now, in this moment, this is the count that we're observing. So nothing's changed, since this price action right here, this is the count that we have been following. Also, we've been following these degrees pretty much the same as well. These degrees have not changed. Same here as well. They have not changed. This is all based off of wave degree, helps you manage expectations. But let's go ahead and give some examples of how we were doing that. I think it might be best to do the replay function here. Let's do the replay function. Let's just take it to this pivot right here. So let me go ahead and bring up the wave degree timing indicator. And usually with the wave degree timing indicator, you're going to want to place the pivot at the end of the structure and the beginning of a new structure. So it's basically the end of a structure and the beginning of a new structure. So it's essentially a pivot in price. So that was the end of this structure and the beginning of the new structure. I'm going to go over these settings here very shortly, but first I want to show how to utilize this tool. So essentially, there was a few ways that we were looking at this move up. Number one, we were looking at it like this, a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Or number two, we were looking at it like this, a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Regardless, we were looking for the structure to end somewhere around this zone for an intermediate wave 1. We were looking at an intermediate wave 1. This was our primary expectation. Now when you're looking at wave degree timing, you want to aim in this zone right here, because this is the average zone. On average, this degree is going to finish anywhere in this zone on average. Typically, it'll gravitate towards the middle. That's standard deviation. So when you basically have standard deviations, mathematical statistic that helps with averages. So on average, wave degree timing, based off of all the timing to completions that I've observed, they're going to end somewhere in this average zone. Now, it could go beyond it, like one standard deviation. So here's one standard deviation, where not many usually finish around that time. Then we have the extreme level, the extreme standard, or the second deviation, where not a lot of wave degrees on the intermediate level finish at this because it's extended in time. So not very many of them finish around that level. It's a low sample that occurs. as opposed to the average. There's a large sample that occur around this area. So it's basically a statistical measure to help us manage expectations in real time. On top of this, we can take it down even further to the lower time frame wave degrees, or even the microwave degrees. Me personally, I like to keep it pretty much on these wave degrees right here. I'm going to be mainly monitoring things from an intermediate, minor, minute, and minuet perspective, because a lot of the major trends that occur in price occur with these pivots, and primary degrees and above, it's just a little too long of a time frame to really observe, unless you're a position holder. Microwave degrees, they're difficult to navigate on a lower time frame because there are so many things that develop on a lower time frame that can be invalidated from alleyway perspective. It's hard to manage expectations on a micro time frame, but it is possible. Therefore, typically I like to stay within this zone, the intermediate to the minuet zone. So let's say in real time, I think we were actually looking at this as a minute wave 1, meaning a minute wave 1 like that, or we were looking at it at a minor degree. What that means is we were looking for it to pretty much end at least right here to somewhere right there. We were looking for a change in the trend, a pivot to occur around this area, which is what we got. We got a major change in the trend right there. First, we were bullish, we were trending upwards, then we had to correct it. That change in the trend occurred pretty much right there. It's not an exact science, but it's something to help you understand when a major change in the trend is occurring, when it's about to occur. So let's just continue on with this. Let's say we go to the end of the wave 2 structure and the beginning of the wave 3 structure. From an alleyway perspective, we were looking at this as a minute wave 3 or a minor wave 3. So we're going to look for it to end somewhere around this zone right here, which is pretty much what we got. So it's about managing expectations from a time perspective, but also being aware of the actual wave degree that you're experiencing in real time, so you know what degree you're experiencing. Let's use it in real time right now. So let's use it for a impulse, because we've used it a lot for the corrections, and I've showed it a lot for the corrections, but let's show it for an impulse. So when we were observing this structure, we had it as a minute or we had it as a minuet. Those were the two structures that we were pretty much observing here. Now with wave degree, just going back to that standard deviation, you want to be within +1 or -1 of the actual degree you're observing. So, like, as of right now, we can pretty much classify this for sure as at least a minor or an intermediate. So we know that we're within that baseline. If we were to classify this as like a minuet wave 3, that would be too long in time for a minuet, and it's a tricky conversation. It's a nuanced conversation, but when it comes to degree, it's all based off of time and structure. So the preceding structures, they can't grow larger in time than the ones that preceded before that. It's a difficult conversation to have, but the more that you dive into wave degree, the more that you understand it. It's basically, once again, a way to help us understand what degree we're experiencing in real time. So like, let's say the real degree was actually wave 3. That's our baseline, the minor wave 3 right here. So if we were at least at a intermediate wave 3, like that, or we were looking at a minute wave 3, but in reality it was a minor wave 3. This is what we're aiming for, because we were within at least one standard deviation of the actual wave degree. It was actually a minor wave 3. Maybe we were looking at an intermediate wave 3. We're still within parameters of our expectations. It's still going to help us manage expectations in real time. So as long as we're within +1 or -1 standard deviation, that's the goal here. So going back to our conversation, we were looking at this either as a minute or a minuet. Those were the 2 degrees that we were looking at. Let me just take this back here, just so it's easier to take a look at. Let's go ahead and put our wave degree timing indicator on. Here we go. We'll put it right here, which is the end of this wave 2 and the beginning of this wave 3. So we said minute or minuet. That's what we said we were looking for. So that means we were looking for a change in the trend somewhere around this area right here, which is what we got. We had a nice change in trend. We were trending upwards. Then we had to correct. So we had that minute wave 2 correction right there. Once that minute wave 2 correction is done, we expect a change in the trend upwards for a wave 3. So we're going to place it at the end of this structure in the beginning of a new structure and follow it. So we would expect it to end somewhere around this area right here, which is once again pretty much what we got. Once it reached this area, this average area of completion, we got that change in the trend. Moved up, change in the trend. Moved up, change in the trend. Now once this wave 4 is completed, we can look for the end of the next structure. So we're going to place it at the end of this wave 4 and the beginning of the wave 5. Now, this is where some knowledge of LA wave comes into play. So you had a moderate wave 1, and then you also had a relatively moderate wave 3 right here. There wasn't too much of a difference. Usually when you get that wave 3, it's pretty expansive like that, but this wave 3 was kind of something just like that. So this leaves the opportunity to for wave 5 to really run for an extension. If there is no extension in the first or the third, then it can occur in the wave 5, which is something that happened right here. Regardless, we were looking for it to end somewhere around this zone. Once again, we're going to look for always the average of completion. It did somewhat help us in real time at this point, but it wasn't the end of the structure. So you could continue to observe it and continue to observe it, but once it reaches this maximum zone, that's pretty much a red flag. It's saying, hey, that pivot is going to occur extremely shortly. It's coming, and it's gonna be here. So it's letting you know that that pivot is literally right around the corner. And that's pretty much what we got. We had a major strong change in the trend. So in real time, these are the exact degrees that we were looking at, and these are the exact times that we were looking at too. And you can go back and watch the YouTube videos as well. All this is in the YouTube videos that I did for the Bitcoin LA Wave streams. This is number 1. This is managing expectations in real time. This is how you understand what degree you're looking at in real time, how to label it in real time, and and how to manage the change in the trend in real time. Real-time degree classification. Now, number 2 is going to be a little bit of a quicker topic. Actually, I don't want to delete this because it's actually part of my counts. Let's just get rid of that. Let's actually go back here because this is a good topic, because I think this is something we talked about in real time a few months ago. Go right here. So, number 1, helps with managed expectations in real time. Number 2, awareness of major changes in the trend, price pivots. I touched on it a little bit when I was going over it, but what I mean by major changes in the trend is when you have multiple degrees lining up. So, like, let's say we have a minuet, and then we have a minuet, and then we have a minute, and then we have a minor, and then we have like an intermediate degree. You have all of these degrees lining up from the lower level to the higher level. This is what I call wave degree confluence, meaning all of these pivots are lining up, all these structures are ending, and once that minor structure on the lower time frame ends, then it's a huge pivot, huge change in the trend. Just as an example, in real time, I'd say about at this point, we were looking at this actually as a flat. We were looking at this as an A, we were looking at this as a B, and then we were looking for an impulse right here. Once again, go back and watch the YouTube videos. They're all in the public YouTube videos that I did. How does this help us? So basically, when we're looking at changing the trend, we were looking at this as a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of a minute degree. Once again, our expectations for this correction was a intermediate degree. How we can understand the changes in the trend is by lining up all of these the degree timing of completions. Something like this, which I'll show right now. Number 1, the largest degree that we're observing is an intermediate degree. That's the largest one that we're observing, because we were looking at this as a intermediate wave 2. That was our expectation. So that means we're going to look for the average zone of completion, right? We're going to look for this zone. This is that average zone. Here's the extreme. There's the normal standard deviation. And then we go back into the extreme zone, just like that. The bell curve. We're going to look for the average zone where they all occur, which is right there. So this is our zone right here. Let me just mark it for simplicity as the corresponding degree. The next degree that we're looking at was a minor. So we're looking for the end of this minor correction. And the end of this is going to be the C wave. So we're going to look at the origin of it. So we're going to place our wave degree timing at the end of this wave B and the beginning of the wave C. Remember, they're always at the pivots, the end of a structure and the beginning of a new structure. We said this was a minor degree, so let's go ahead and just narrow it down to minor. So here's our new zone. We're going to be looking at this zone right here. So we've narrowed it down. It was this zone, but now we've narrowed it down to this zone. We get rid of this, and we're going to be looking towards this zone right here. And this is the zone that we're looking for. It's been narrowed down. And just to help out too, let's just say like we're right here. Let's say we don't know that that pivot's occurred yet, and this is where we're at, which is pretty much what we were looking at in real time as well. The last thing we're going to look for is the next wave degree. What's next? It's this minute wave 5. We're going to want to gauge when this minute wave 5 is going to end. So we're going to place it at the end of the wave 4 and the beginning of the wave 5. Remember, the end of a structure, beginning of a new structure. Let's go ahead and take this down to the minute time frame. And this is our new zone right here. We're going to be looking for the end of it to occur pretty much right there. Where's our average zone? Right there. So we've narrowed it down. Everything's lining up. We have our intermediate degree ending somewhere in here. We have our minor degree ending somewhere in this zone. And now we're looking for the minute wave 5 to end somewhere in this zone right here. Boom, right there. And right in that zone, pivoted strongly away. Strongly away. Once we have a change in the market structure, like right here, you can label this as completed. You can label this pivot right here as being officially completed for a wave 2. And that's pretty much how you do it. You line it up. You line all the wave degrees up, and you narrow it down. And just to be a little more precise, you can try to narrow it down with structure as well. Meaning you have a wave 1, 2, 3, a 4, and then you're going to expect that one more low, that fifth of a fifth of a fifth. And that would be a clear indication or a potential pivot right there. It may go down one more time or another one, but once again, you're trying to manage when this trend is finishing and when a new trend is going to begin. That's what wave degree helps with. Now settings, they are relatively self-explanatory. There's a way to put the position of it on the top, like this, or the bottom. There's several ways to do it. You can also increase it or decrease the position of it. So, like, you want to bring it down, you can bring it down. You want to bring it down like a good amount, you can. And it's all relative to the y-axis. So like with Bitcoin's moving like thousands or a few thousand. So you're gonna utilize that same concept here. But like let's say like XRP, you're only gonna use like 10 or like 100, you know, or like S&P, you're only gonna use like 50. Or if like NASDAQ, you're only going to use like a few hundred or like 500, because on average, that's the amount that it moves. So it's all relative to the asset that you're observing, but you can pretty much customize it as you want. If you're observing that specific degree, you can also extend the lines, something like this, just to help you section it out and be aware of the next zone. You can change the colors. This one's for the text. This one's for the actual boxes itself. And this one's for the maximum zone. This is a table here just to kind of help with understanding what degrees you should be looking at on the chart time frame. So when it comes to the high time frame wave degrees, you're going to want to be looking at it on the hour 4 chart, kind of like we're doing right now. When it comes to the lower time frame wave degrees, you're going to want to be using this indicator and looking at it on the 15-minute to the hourly chart. And when it comes to the microwave degrees, you're going to be wanting using this indicator on the 5 minutes, the 1 minute, or the 15 minutes. And those are the degrees you're going to be looking at. You can even just get rid of this table if you want. It's there just as kind of just a reminder, just so it can help you with how to utilize this indicator correctly. And then you can also change the text of it as well, and also change the text of the actual degree itself above. You can change both of these texts independently of each other. That's pretty much the wave degree timing indicator, a comprehensive view of it. Once you play around with it, you'll kind of understand it a little bit more. But if you ever have any questions, always feel free to just send me a message publicly or privately, and I'll try to respond as quickly as possible. But that's all of it in a nutshell. Hope you guys enjoyed.